It's late night, deconverted man. Hello. I wanted to go over what makes a good argument and use a bad argument as a example of what not to do, if you will. So first and foremost, remember that the burden of proof is upon you. You're making the argument, thus you need to support your claims in some way or the other. That might mean citing different uh, articles, different books, different peer-reviewed publications, scientific papers, maybe other people like that, depending on the formula of the argument. Now, if you're making a syllogism, citing things isn't necessary as long as the syllogism is valid and sound. If you're doing essay style, then citation is absolutely and probably going to be necessary because you're going to want to prove your points to your audience. The more complex the subject, the more in depth this needs to be. You have to show that this is true to some level. Now, what you're saying, if it's mundane, then you might not need to go through this effort. An argument that I'm making right now on how to argue is rather mundane. Now, I can and will, if asked, provide sources and resources for you to look into of how logic functions. You know, what's the burden of proof? Maybe you want to double check on that. Fair enough. I'm not going to get upset because you asked me to prove a point. When I asked somebody to cite something that proved a point quite some time ago, they did so. Now, they kind of had to be, poked a little bit to get it, but they still did it. And I was like, oh, okay, thank you. Now I believe you. Now I agree with you. I asked for the citation, I asked for the thing, and you gave me the thing. You recognized the burden of proof was upon you, and you did it without, too much grumbling. And that's really where we hopefully should be, is that we're willing and able to find the thing that supports the thing that we're trying to argue for. And if we're not going to do that, then maybe we shouldn't bother making the claim. But what you should never do is switch the burden of proof. Asking questions of the person that's being skeptical is not in and of itself an argument. Well, what about this? How do you consider this? How do you explain that? It doesn't matter. Where's the evidence for what you're saying? Where's the proof for what you're saying? Demonstrate that you're correct, and then I will agree with you. And if you don't want to do that, then that's it. I'm just not going to agree with you. And that doesn't change. No matter who makes the claim, whatever person or group, the rules do not change. The burden stays with the person making the claim. The style matters. If it's a syllogism, it's one certain set of rules for that. If it's an essay style, there's a different set of rules for that. And being aware of those rules, you can make a good case for whatever it is you want to make. If you found something to be true and you want others to think it's true, then you should do the best job that you can to demonstrate that it's true. So, I think that covered all the things on my little list. So let's turn sadly to the example. And I've blanked out who it is I'm talking to because that's not relevant. What's relevant is what wasn't done. So let me pull that up here. Okay. Yeah, pardon moi. So I started by asking, any proof for this? And their response was, how many anti-white articles are written by their journalists? Now, by they, I just want to clarify. This is referring to Jewish people. Okay, so they made a video saying that Jewish people are running the show and doing all these terrible things or whatever. Now, is it because they have power and they happen to be Jewish? Like, it's not that they're Jewish, therefore they're able to do these things. No, it's that they have power and they happen to be Jewish. Like, okay, that's possible, maybe, but you're going to have to show that that's true. You know, some conspiracies turn out to be true, but you're making claims that are kind of sweeping generalizations. And this is a common conspiracy thing to say the Jews are at fault for all the things and they're behind it all and they're the Illuminati or whatever. So because of that, I'm going to be a little bit more skeptical than I would be otherwise. This is not a mundane claim. Okay. So this is a question. Okay. The question is irrelevant. That's not on me to answer. You're the one carrying the burden of proof. So that's the burden of proof. That's yours, not mine. So every single question becomes irrelevant. And that is logical fallacy, logical fallacy, logical fallacy, logical fallacy, logical fallacy, logical fallacy. So if your original argument had very few logical fallacies, now it has +6. That's not good. So you should be telling me these answers. You should say, here's approximately how many have been written. Here's the proof for that. Here's the citations. Look at my description. I filled it with the links that shows polls of this, shows articles, it counts the names, it shows who's whatever. Okay? That's your burden. This right here is shifting the burden of proof. What shred of proof do you have that it's not them? That is the shifting of the burden of the proof. And it's also asking me to prove a negative, which is extraordinarily hard to do. If it's a universal negative, it's impossible. Well, it's not my burden to do that. My burden is simply asking where the proof is, and it's up to you to provide it. But you didn't do that. So rather than asking me questions, say, here's the proof. I offered the proof in time index 105 of the video, or I talked about this in this article here, and or whatever. So I asked for names, connections, citations, evidence. What this Project Veritas, I've never heard of that before. Whatever that is, has come to the correct conclusions. What does that have to do with anything? What's your argument? Switching the burden of proof is not a valid argument. And I implored them to use their skeptical thinking. Present facts, evidence, and valid sound argument. And then I summarized that if you can't, I'll be skeptical of your conclusions because I have to be. Now, their response was weird. Stop lying. Well, wait a minute. This is another thing not to do. Don't accuse your otherwise worthy opponent of lying, manipulating facts, or being deceitful. Try to avoid that sort of language. You don't know the person's mind. You can't read their mind. You don't know that they're lying. Maybe they're just mistaken. Done zero scrutiny. Well, yeah, because you've not given me an argument. The motive for me to look into a matter further is to be given a valid and sound argumentation or some chain of evidence that would compel me to look further into it. So, yeah, this is correct, and it's your fault. And provided zero evidence, this is not my burden to hold. So that's another shifting of the burden of proof. This is a thing to avoid. And all the things that all the leading authors on critical race are this race, talking about the Jews, the Jewish people. Okay, show that the leading authors of critical race theory are Jewish. That should be simple. You just, here's X, Y, and Z, and here's their name, and here's who that person is, and you can tell by appearance, or maybe we have something where they said that they were Jewish, or whatever, But that would be proving your point, and maybe you're right, but you need to prove that point. You don't get to demand where is the evidence. Yes, I do, because the rules don't change when the people are in every single position of power. But that's a claim. You have to support that claim with proof, and you didn't offer any. And this could be anything. This happens to be kind of a offshoot that this person is kind of being conspiratorial, conspiracy type, and fair enough. But I evaluate all claims in the same way. Maybe what you're saying is true, but I'm going to need the proof to show that it's true. And this sort of argumentation isn't going to make me think that you're right. It's just going to push me further away because you're not providing me the evidence. You're fighting against doing the thing that you should do. And so apparently they own everything. And I, again, didn't evaluate the claims. Well, there's nothing to evaluate if you don't offer anything. He did not, or she did not, provide abundance of facts. So otherwise I wouldn't be. And if they did, well, where are these facts? Are they in the site? Say, look, in my description of the video, there it is at time index 517. I talked about this, or whatever. It's simple. I've done that in videos I've made. And then again, Google. This is the ultimate in burden switching. Just Google it for yourself, because I can't be bothered. Okay, so no, that's not how it works. You make the claim, you have the burden, and it can be with anything and everything. Now, I bring this up not just for that particular individual, but I've seen this happen before with a different person I knew. Way back when, rewind 4 years, when Trump got elected, this guy had written a book, a fantastic book, why Christianity is brainwashing, and it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I wanted to get him to. He took it down from being sold, and I was like, "Why did you do this? You gotta have this. We need this book, And he was like, "Well, Trump got elected. People are going to come for me, and then I'm going to get killed, and all this." It's like, what? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? And he just went into this rabbit hole of conspiracy type of thinking, and this otherwise rational human being became unhinged. He started insulting me. He did the same sort of things that I'm seeing here, where he's like, prove it's not true, blah, 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 and all this. And it's like, I wonder now that Trump's not in office, if he comes out of hiding. I don't know. I haven't heard from him, so I'm guessing not. And this can happen. This can happen to you, can happen to me. And that's why we always must be willing and able to challenge our beliefs, our ideas, always, whatever they might be. And you got to be careful of those, conspiracies, because, and how do you know when you've gone too far? Well, when you start building a story, a narrative around it, that's when you've gone too far. If the things that you have to be skeptical of begin to, build up, or that is to say, the things that you have to believe begin to pile up, and grow, then that's something that you should be more skeptical of. So you take, say, flat Earth. The amount of things that you have to believe to hold to the flat Earth is a lot. A lot of things. You have to believe there's this vast conspiracy theory. You have to believe that people are lying. All these people are wrong. You have to believe a lot of things in order to maintain that belief. And those things it's an exponential growth of belief to maintain this other belief. You shouldn't do that because, well, you should be skeptical of those ideas. And so, okay, wait a minute. How could I go about to prove that I'm wrong? Because maybe I'm wrong. So I want to prove myself wrong. And that's what you should work to do, is to disprove your idea, not to prove it. And that's very difficult to do, but it is possible. So, to make a good argument, just to recap, remember the rules. The burden's on you. Use a valid and sound syllogism, and or have an essay style, and use citations if applicable, because some things don't need citations. And, try to avoid insults. Humor is fine, but you don't need to insult people. I've done it. I'm guilty, okay? But, the Earth being a pancake is impossible in the physical universe which we dwell. Yes, that's correct. Well, I guess not. I was trying to think, like, is it possible for anything to be that big and flat? No, I guess it would collapse in on itself, wouldn't it? The gravity just would make it into a sphere of some sort. Once you get something, like if you had a metal pole, and it was large enough, it probably collapsed under its own weight, something like that. Yeah, I think you have to believe more things. Yeah, no, you do. Starting from scratch, that's difficult to categorize. Like, where would you start from scratch? Like the whole scientific theory? I don't know. Anyways, so those are just some examples of that. Hopefully this helped, maybe, for you to make good arguments, and you found it interesting. And why you're still awake, I don't know. Go to bed, everybody. Thanks for listening. Leave your comments, questions, concerns, and complaints in my comments section. And if you happen to be the person that I was using as an example, feel free to email me. We'll talk behind the scenes about all this, and I'll help guide you to making a better argument. Was you late yet? A little. I mean, sorry, Rick B. I mean, do you want to add something that I should talk about? I mean, I already kind of talked about how to make a good argument. So you'll have to rewind and go back to the start. All right. Now you're sad. Oh, don't be sad, Rick. We love you, Rick B. I don't even know who you are, but I'm just gonna pretend I love you. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Go listen to Catapult Pancakes. That will cheer you up. If that doesn't cheer you up, nothing will. It's all right, everyone. I'm gonna go now. If you don't know what Catapult Pancakes is, because you might not know, and you should. I pulled up the wrong thing. That was my second band, my second album. There's my first album. So that's this. There we go. That's the first album. Listen to that, and then listen to the second album. If you like it, let me know. And if you don't let me know. I don't know. All right. Good night.